Ken and I guess a number of people have been on this crusade and discussion for a long time. Actually, I think, I hate to say this, but it was the 97 DMEC conference. There was a big technology session after we were kind of predicting the future and bemoaning the fact that the lack of support for research in the mining community. And I said then, and I think it's still an issue today, I said, if you were at a technology conference, the people in the room hearing the new ideas, there would be the day of Bill Gates and the leaders of corporations, the people at the top want to know where the front and the edge is. We didn't have a senior officer of any company in that room. They don't want to hear, they don't think they need to hear. And I've repeated this message now for an awful long time, and actually my talk here is going to follow after one I gave last year, where I've been, way back when I had a job in this industry, Ken and I used to commiserate about where we were going, and I had talked to today, and I guess we don't have, we can't think of any major mining company that has an in-house research group anymore. And through the various cycles, they wipe them out every downturn. Exploration gets hit. The first to go is R&D and exploration, but back in the early 2000s, the crisis back there, pretty much forced closure of most of the big firms. BHP, Noranda, a bunch of them just basically shut down, outsourced. And I think the worst thing can happen to you if you work for a major company is if they decide to fund a chair, you're basically going to be told that, you know, part of your business is going to be outsourced at that time, which is good and bad news. I think long-term support funding for the universities is critical, but it's not a building scheme, it's an exit strategy for mining companies. I think that's sad. And so we go challenge what's going on in our industry. Time and time again, we sort of cycle back and ask these questions and find out in ourselves in these predicaments. So I guess as Ken said, what is the question? And I keep thinking maybe what is the problem, but I'm going to talk a little bit about is technology the answer, because in my career, Ken, and that we were busy building new black boxes all the time and trying to outthink each other, how we were going to somehow run to the next discovery before everybody else. And I think one of the things is to understand how we think about our problem of exploration. We keep thinking is we just don't have enough clues, or we think somehow if we had more resolution or better understanding of the clues, that's going to make us better at it. So we tend to kind of, in these downturns, federal governments will all of a sudden dump some money into regional programs. The universities all of a sudden find themselves cashed up to do some R&D. And our industry turns around looking for, of course, corporate restructuring, which is basically a euphemistic way of saying we're laying off a bunch of people. And again, we start looking at, what's the new methods, new ways, new thinkings to manage all this data. And I think one of the problems, and I've been harping on this for years, is I don't think we really understand why we fail. This is sort of what Ken was saying, is that we don't actually find out what was the weak link. It's like having, a heart surgery when, you say, hey, we've got the best surgeons in the world and we can do microsurgeries. We have the guys on bypass for less than 3 minutes, and look at our anesthesiologist is the first guy in the world. But you know what? 9 out of 10 times our patient dies. Who would care? I mean, they'd be astounded. Well, our industry has actually worse performance than that. We've got the best intellectual minds, we have all the technology, but hey, you know what? We spent a lot of money, didn't find a lot of shit, but patient died, but not a big problem. As Ken would say, there'd be a post-mortem. People would want to know, not what the individual tasks, that, I did the right thing, and nobody did anything wrong, but collectively we failed. That's what's been missing. Everybody wants to blame somebody, or they're going to look for a magic answer, but I think we have to really think more and more about that issue of what is it that we're doing wrong. And this is actually a slide I took from last year. Again, we got some of these slides, I should probably go back 15 years, but last year we had this talk about, technology revolution, and I said, well, this is deja vu. This is where we were before. Back in, like I said, the early 2000s, we had a mini crisis. So if you look at the statistics, it doesn't look, it's hard to tell, but there was a 60% drop in funding between like 96 and 02. And it's the same drop we're experiencing now. So percentage-wise, it's almost identical. The relative impact's the same. But back when we were in the doldrums back there, we were, our companies were cutting back on exploration, laying people off, and Ken and I and other companies had access to money to find the magic bullet. I was in funding Megatem and Hyperspectral, and Ken had Falcon, and we had all these wonderful things we were doing. There was the Titan systems coming out, distributed arrays. Everybody was we're going to find the game changer. And so we did all that because we're going to be better at it, and then all of a sudden, we've seen more money pour into this industry we've ever seen in our life. We were well armed, right? We basically were saying, we should be winners. There should have been, with all this cash, with all these tools, there should have been a deluge of discoveries. And in reality, what really happened, and again, go back and look at sort of billions went in, but also what happened is no one cared about being better. You could raise money on anything. You all of a sudden discipline went out the window, right? And so we spent an astounding $21 billion in exploration. And I think about the budgets of 2002 of $2 billion global, 1/10. And that's when we were struggling to figure out how we could be more efficient. Theoretically, we were more efficient with better tools, and then we went 10 times the budget and did nothing with it. So somebody has to, there's got to be more than simply saying, well, Mother Nature's cruel. It goes back to the question, is it really an issue that we should expect to fail? If it's all bad luck. It's like the patient died, nobody's fault. Mother Nature is a difficult lady, and so when a project fails, there's nobody who's accountable. That's why you don't need a postmortem. We're just unlucky. But I said, if that's the game we're in, then we should be talking to our managers about, you got $100 million to spend? There's a lot of tickets you could buy for that, right? Because you're playing the same game. And your probably return is better, because at least you get something back. Where there's an awful lot of companies that don't exist today because they spent their $100 million and got nothing from it. So, and again, so what happens, and here's an interesting question, because what really generated, even today, copper in the 250 range, when we were back there, we were dealing with 84-cent copper, 35-cent zinc. So even today that has gone up and fallen back down, these are prices that are still incredibly high, considered their historic value. So if we're not making the definition of ore with these lofty prices today, it really shows you the lack of quality assets that were tabled. Because I would have, you've got 3 times the price of copper. The bar should be clipping a whole lot of deposits and making them run. But they don't. So again, what are we doing wrong? So the one question, of course, this goes back to, do we need better technology? And I reflect back, as I said, on the wonderful things we did in the past, and we went through this. And so I stopped and looked at it, and I said, you know what? We're in the business, if you're a geophysicist, of measuring physical properties, right? And generally you need a contrast. So we're looking for contrasting physical properties, and we have all kinds of different instruments to do different things, to look at different issues or characteristics. But the interesting part about it, and we can go and create, of course, that super high-grade gold deposit that's very small. But generally, we're looking at targets that have a dimension in the kilometers. Thicknesses, we were mining thicknesses 30+ meters, right? You're looking at millions of cubic meters of target, and we can't find it. And yet we're telling people we need a tool that's going to somehow provide greater refinement. My max min is still fucking good enough to find this target, right? Why do I need these sophisticated technologies? And of course, we can talk about depth of penetration, but a lot of the technologies we have today suffice. We're still not deploying them well. So I was part of this, the curse of bringing Megatem forward, and immediately, because of the worst thing ever happened, the first test lines we flew resulted in a discovery. And that turned on for the provinces of Ontario and Quebec and companies, literally hundreds of thousands of kilometers of megatem looking for the next one. And as far as I know, not one other deposit was found. But the idea was, we'd only skimmed this layer. Now we'd increase the layer deeper, so we're going to find everything we'd missed before. That wasn't true. And no one went back after. In fact, actually, Ken asked me one time, maybe we should get, if we could do a talk on that. I said, certainly I'd love to do it, but I don't know whether or not we could get the, what's this, Glencore now, or
well, the
Extratus to confess.
In fact, back in 2011, Ken,
yeah.
we got Glencore, we got Michel Allard to actually give a talk on that project, and it was at the end, and I remember Michel coming up to me after and said, you know, Charles, this is the first time we do a postmortem on this project. And the only reason why it was done is because we actually asked them to come and give a talk, and it was I thought it was really good, and the results, by the way, the summary of that is in the last edition of
January newsletter.
Yeah.
In fact, it was the word he used, and this was to me poignant. He says, "We finally have closure." And that was the word he used.
That's what he used.
Closure. So this is a project he worked on for 8 years. All he could say officially was it was a success, and he knew it wasn't. So we got him a chance to have it come out, which was good.
Well, that's going to lead into one of my slides too, because again, it was I guess what got me in trouble at Miranda. I said, when you know you're complaining about what we're doing wrong. And I actually, the title of Why We Fail, I actually presented in a corporate in-house care presentation back in about 2000, and caused everyone to say we don't fail, and we've got a great team and everything else. And it sort of, you know, like I said, I was asking these questions a long time ago, but we weren't going anywhere. But anyway, I think the key here is commodity prices are actually creating the resources we're not finding. And as I said, and maybe that's ultimately has to be true. If you think about it, actually I think in the population from, I think it was 1980 till projected in 2020, we're going from about 4.4 to 8 billion people, almost doubling the world's population, which is going to put a huge demand. Maybe the growth strategy is, guys, let's figure out what happens when the price goes here, what's the ore? Take all these marginal deposits that are now from bankrupt junior companies and buy them and just sit them. Don't drill, don't explore it, just destroy value, just wait. The tide will come in and lift your ship. It has to. And so that's, you know, it's a sad future for us, because it means that there's no need to do anything. But that's what's generating the value today. And it's also, when Ken showed that slide about number of discoveries, people say, oh no, but that's not correct, because we need a couple of years before we know what's happened last year. I said, yeah, but you also don't understand that the price has just doubled, that we've created ore bodies through doubling so if we use a constant pricing and go back into 70 years ago, it would have changed the whole story again. So it's hard to find a useful metric when you're seeing commodity prices so volatile. What's your reference point, right? Anyway, that's so. I guess I said, so why do we continue to fail? I said, I think the target's easy. I remember I said the easiest exploration in the world was to go up into the high Arctic, because we would sit around tables. Everybody had to write their target model out, what they thought the size had to be economic. And Miranda was predominantly a base metal company, so it wasn't hard to say, if you're going to go work up in Northwest Territories, you needed at least 50 million tons of super grade stuff with any hope in less than 40 kilometers from an ocean or a port, because infrastructure costs will kill you. Again, you do the math. That thing's 50 meters wide, 1.5 kilometers this way and 2 kilometers that way to get the target you're looking for. People go out, what do? They drill a hole, and they step out 100 meters to drill another hole, they missed it, come back and didn't do an infill. It's insanity. We waste money. The inability to think that where you are and what you're looking for. It goes back to, and in actual fact, I'm not going to talk about, I'll just say, I know a technical project where people got bonuses for finding 8 million tons plus of zinc deposit in the Yukon, which we were drilling for SEDEX deposit, big, had all the stringers, and we ran the geophysics over it. There's no gravity bump, there's no EM, there's nothing. And anyway, I sat in a meeting and said, well, I don't think there's anything here worth finding, because they were going to continue to keep drilling. And I remember a senior manager saying, you can't give up on this, mines are made, not found. And then I said, well, I don't understand how we're not seeing any of this in the mineralization. And the guy stands up, geologist says, well, it's obvious, they don't have big gravity anomaly. The gang is calcite. So we're drilling veins when we're looking for SEDEX. So these were just, yeah, we managed to string together 8 million tons, but with the opportunity cost, the wasted energy. And it's again, it goes to the culture. I can talk about this, where as soon as you open an office somewhere, despite us thinking that, oh, we're gonna let that guy fund him until he finds the best project. We have this notion that if he doesn't have a project, he doesn't have a job. So every office has to have some projects. It's the best one he has, but maybe it shouldn't be funded. But that leads then to pursuit, lack of focus and spending money on projects you shouldn't do. So as I said, this is sort of a summary of what slide. I can't put everything on that was out there, but this was kind of where we were at, and man, we had an incredible list of stuff. There's stuff that was on there. There's this little thing here. We did 3D seismic in the Bathurst camp. It's a wonderful, found an ore body down 1 kilometer, and we drilled that hole. It was, I think, 1,150 meters down, and with the precision to put it into a 50-meter box down there, and that's exactly where it was. Wonderful. That survey cost us about $5 million, mind you. But the ore was 6%. Not ore, right? And the real reality is, the Bathurst camp, you look at the tenors of the grade, the expectation to be any higher than that was pretty much 0. But you have to think again about operation was a success, the patient died. So the question was sort of last year, we're looking at the big technological innovations, and I'm a lover of technology. My background is equally footed in technology as ever was in exploration. So, but when we started last year talking about, oh, we're going to go do this, we're going to fund R&D, we're going to find the magic bullet, we're going to improve all these technologies, and it just, like I said, I've been here, done that. And I guess the thing is, the definition of insanity rang very loud and true with me here, because we're starting to do the same thing. There's an interest in having this discussion that wasn't here 3 years ago. We didn't need it 3 years ago. Everybody had a lot of money, busy. You could drill anything, undisciplined work. An interesting part about, and I should go back to the budget thing. When I wrote a paper with Peter Rose, Rose and Associates, and they were leaders in the probabilistic analysis in the oil industry. And one of the things he talked about was motivational bias and prospector myth and all this stuff that gets you chasing the wrong things. But he said, what they found out is, he did a lot of work in the 80s when the oil prices popped and budgets tripled, and actually the discovery rates went down. They phenomenally got worse. They didn't just hold firm, they actually got worse. And his explanation to it was really probably the one we face. So as you go talk to your exploration group, takes their 100 best projects, they table them on, and they get a budget. They only get so many dollars. Guess what? They take the top 30, and the rest of them are too bad they didn't get funded. There's a price spike in commodity. Guys come back and say, oh, we're going to give you an extra $50 million. They don't go out and find projects of equal merit of 30 they fund. The bar just drops. I can now do the thing I was told I wasn't in my priority until somebody gave me more money. And he said, that's the typical response. And that's an issue that I think that boost we saw is a reflection of. We could do anything. And we never asked ourselves, the hard question is, if I have money, I can buy a better project than one I have. But instead, I can still get lucky, right? We don't know, because we believe, again, Mother Nature's a luck game. We don't have to apply ourselves to truly analyze the potential of the property, because the other great expression, you never know until you drill. It's a curse. It's the one that leads to budget chasing, bad outcome. And the other one that I always love is we have a new model. We drilled all that stuff last time and it didn't turn out, but we had a sniff over here, so we've changed the model. We can never kill the project. So, and again, I want to say that I'm not against, as Ken said, there are certainly, we do need technological improvements. Drilling is probably one of the most important things we have, because we are pursuing deeper and deeper. That's an important part of what some of the problems we're facing, but continuous improvement in geoscience always has an impact, but it has not the issue that's going to solve why we fail. And I kind of asked the question, this one, I was saying, well, what was Ed's? You know, we're facing this world, we have all, you know, we're complaining we need more government maps, the maps aren't good enough. Fly some regional surveys for us to help focus our efforts. What's the tool he had? He had a pick and a shovel, maybe some dynamite. And he was grub staked, he had no money. If he didn't produce, he was eventually out of work. He had actually a very efficient system. When you're looking at a prospect that can't pay, he can drop it because he's not being paid to just have a job. It's not his office. He's actually, so I think actually we can learn something about those, what the prospectors are doing. Certainly he couldn't find the ore body that was covered. But you think about what was found in northern Quebec and Canada in general. These guys went out there were no maps, there were no infrastructure, they went up rivers, and they created the Red Lakes, the Timmins and the Val d'Ors, the Norandas were created out of the bush from guys who didn't have a map to tell them where to look. But they were very efficient. And I think it's, again, it goes back to how were they managing data. So I think we're measuring the wrong performance. Like I said, I love this one that comes from, like I said, Rose, is the other thing he kind of showed to me is that we always think it's a straight line. You know, we drill a project, we fail, we just fail. We confuse technical success with the true success of a project. His argument was that Mother Nature always has a sort of is that logarithmic distribution of ore bodies. You can plot them on and determine what the probability of finding one is. But he says, yeah, we all know massive sulfides are typically small. So, but you should find, if you're drilling massive sulfides, if you drill a graphitic conductor, you can't say, oh, technical success. We explained the anomaly, and that's what we used to do. We would be happy the technical team was doing well. Guys, in fact, at Noranda, I don't know, see a slide here, I said, oh, I had the 95 success rate. I was head of the technical team, and so we got, part of our performance review was, what's your success at drilling? We always got a bonus because we were better than 95%. Wasn't too many holes. We couldn't drill that says, there's the mag explained, here's the conductor, or whatever it was. But shouldn't we have been asked as a team to get on what was the economic impact of that? So we were measuring the wrong performance. And this is universal, right? We've seen all these talks out there about, the chances of finding an ore body, right? It's just horrifically discouraging, right? 1 in 10,000 projects makes it, right? And you go down, and there's a bunch of lists out there, and I actually published a couple myself, but everyone tells you the same story. We're playing a game of gambler's room. The cards are stacked against us. So we really have to start figuring out when to quit playing the game and find a better table, right? That's really the problem. Do you buy lottery tickets? Are you going to go to the craps table? Do you play blackjack? Are you going to play one-armed bandits? But you got to at least understand the game better than we do today. And at some point, we actually know the answer. We do know the answer. We just, like I said, We drill projects when all the data still tells us it's not there. But it needs one more hole. It's not dead yet. And so when we're having this question, I said, I'm convinced that we don't have a clue how to fix performance. We don't know what the problem really is. We keep reaching out to say, okay, universities, give us your brightest. We're going to put a few more chairs out there and fund a few more PhD students. Anybody got a smart idea? We'll give you the R&D funding for that. Hey, you guys have been in this business a long time. Go in the closet and figure out what you can do you haven't already thought of, right? Just get us on the matrix and take a couple of pills and we'll come back out and we'll have some wonderful ideas. But I think, you know, as one of the things I looked at was, you know, if you think about it in a different way, as like I said, when you get into probabilistic analysis, you basically, realize that, let me back this up, is that,
Give us your 3 best ones.
yeah, I'll figure I'll go to this one actually. This one, the other one was just telling you about the chance of failure and why it's little, because it's really the sum of the risks, or the product of the risks. And there may be 5 of them you know absolutely to 99%, but there's 2 or 3 you don't know nothing. But we don't understand that when we explore. And this goes back to actually the slide that Ken showed. We look at, we want to go find a project, and we have the world at our feet, we get it down to a greenstone belt, and then somebody says, well, this is what we're going to do. Now, depending where you are, it's different in brownfield camps where you can find ore bodies down a kilometer and still to argue that they're economic. But generally, we're doing a lot of work here. I'm saying that unequivocally, we have all the technology we need to find that ore body. So it's like Schrodinger's cat. Once we pick up the property, there's either an ore body or there isn't, because we will find it. The problem is how much money and time you're going to waste opening the box. And that's what we waste. That's, I think, really where most of our destruction is done. It's like efficiency that he said. We blow all the money, we don't have it saved to go find the better project. You can't help, it's like until you open it's like Schrodinger's cat, you still have to kind of open the box. But at some point, you have enough information to tell you, I don't have to open the box, so I can go to find a new one. I know enough that the future prospects of this are not there. And the other one, I got the same kind of thing that Ken has about once you call the technology team into the project, right? It's like the hunter with a loaded gun. Something's going to get shot. You brought in, you just spent $500,000 in an airborne on the camp, and you just spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in regionals via CAM, and you've got this project down. Do you think you can walk away without drilling? No, you can't. Because it's like saying, oh, it's a failure, we wasted our money. But we never accept the technology as a filter. It's all targeting. So as soon as you call it a targeting tool, as Ken said, you get that airborne VTEM, whatever the anomaly is, it has to be drilled, despite us knowing it's in the wrong geology, or it doesn't. We're looking for a sulfide and there's no magnetic signature. All the things can tell us it's not the right thing to do, but because we call it targeting, and the team's already ready to go in, you're going in. So the other thing was, again, the HP was GE, but we all went through the Six Sigma training that was going to make us better. I actually did think that there was a lot to learn from that, but the problem was in the exploration group, they didn't engage this at all. We're in exploration. Exploration is not a process. We got, you got to find mine friends. There's a culture. There's a guy out there or a woman out there who's just happens to have the knack to find ore bodies. So we believe in the prospector myth. There's the right people. We also say because it's bad luck, it's not performance, is why we fail. We don't need to do this. But I think this is a good place to start, because what it'll tell you, as I said, what stage in the process are we doing poorly? Is it project selection? Is it project execution? When did we know this project really had no future? There's nothing wrong with having to acquire the project because it had an idea, but when did you know it had no future? To get on to the next opportunity. So, point to ponder. We're talking about different thinking. And in my readings and thinking about it, Ptolemy's universe back in the times in 1500s, 1600s when the church, right, it was the belief that everything revolved around the earth. That was the system. And all the science of the day, the data that was collected, reinforced that. And then when you got people like Copernicus who saying, well, I think the data tells me something different. And even Galileo, so in his day, was convicted of heresy, sentenced to house arrest, for essentially saying, no, I have to believe that this is wrong. Well, is our exploration universe much the same? You can go back to Copernican theory and others it's like the Rutherford atom and then the current steps and changes. You could explain a lot of stuff with the Rutherford atom, but you couldn't explain everything. So our problem with our exploration universe, I think we're caught in this world of we don't need review. It's bad luck. It's sort of, this is the religion of exploration. And we just collect more data. We go get better tools. As they had that time, they were getting telescopes. They could watch Earth and planetary movement. They could see the data telling them something different. In our case, we have a deluge of data. We got no better performance. Something's wrong with how we're taking data and applying it to our exploration universe. I think the model's wrong. I'm not necessarily saying I know what the model is, but I know that once people accepted that the Ptolemy view of the world, the universe was wrong, it led to understandings of all the things in the universe, then the other data made sense. As soon as you broke the curse, got out of the religious trap, then all that other data you were staring at, you said, I don't know what it means, all of a sudden made sense. And a whole lot of discoveries and planets and understanding of the universe moved a step forward. And of course, we've seen many, many steps since then. So anyway, that's my gut feel on maybe we should be thinking about what's wrong with our religion. It's how we go to church. The church of exploration, I think, is like the church back then. The science and the church were connected. Our view that I do nothing wrong is the religion of that your exploration manager, the VP exploration, is an infallible person that migrated up to the top of the pyramid. It's their turn to decide. They don't need guidance. It's the emperor. They're the new emperor. So in conclusion, nothing's really changed since in 15 years, this big pulse. We're back to where we were in 2002. We have all the technology we need. And I don't think there's a technology solution out there that's going to fix our problem. It's going to add to our efficiencies. It's certainly going to make deep exploration in the camps, like we're drilling, we can see the incremental change, reducing cost. But it's not going to change the fact that we continue to make bad decisions, which is why we find ourselves being cast to the road every cycle, because they turn around and said, you guys didn't find us anything. Oh, it was terrible, and it's, we just keep saying it was bad luck. So then you say, well, losing my job, I guess it's just bad luck too. But I think we have to think more about it. And a big thing, my bottom line says that we don't know the question, because I don't think we really understand why we fail. Until you know what the problem is, you're not going to be able to address a true solution to performance. And as I said, that's how I've seen this for when I was at Noranda. We rewarded, I think, bad behavior. As I said, I can't complain. I got a lot of bonuses because I was technically good, but I lost my job because we weren't finding ore bodies. So what good did it do me in the long run? And I'd rather see the young people today have a career in this business and not go through the meat grinder that most of us have, as how many different companies you're going to work with in your life, and every downturn you realize you're going to be on the street looking for another job. Thanks.